So today's class is on the major arcana. The For those of you who don't know, the minor arcana within tarot and the major arcana within tarot actually have extremely different histories and backgrounds. The minor arcana, which within tarot actually got developed a couple thousand years ago in ancient Arabia, and it uses ancient Arabian numerology to give symbology to every card. So the minor arcana are going to be cards like the Five of Pentacles, the Four of Wands, the Ace of Chalices, and so on. And those cards are based off of ancient Arabian numerology and as well as ancient Arabian elemental symbology. It actually started as a game in the Middle East and in ancient Arabia, to be specific. And it was a divination game. People would use it at festivals and at gatherings and feasts, and it was even a game that kids enjoyed playing as well. It was for everybody. It wasn't something that was just solely for people who were interested in mystical practices or interested in divination work. It was something for everyone. And if you would like a larger history on the minor arcana, you can look at the videos on YouTube that are for the minor arcana. I give like a big hour-long history lesson on the minor arcana. But when Europe and the Middle East started trading with each other, this game made it on to trade ships, and it's made its way to Europe in many different ways, specifically to Italy. And in Italy, the people of Italy enjoyed it so much and loved the concept so much that they ended up adding their own cards. And the cards that Italy added were the major arcana. And that is why once you know that information, it's so easy to tell when you look at your deck of cards how different the minor arcana are from the major arcana. Even the symbology within the cards are completely different. You have in the major arcana, you have things that are based off of tropical astrology, off of Greek mythology, off of a lot of very prominent European symbology. And in the minor arcana, you have this deep numerology symbolism that exists within the cards, and they look extremely different. You also have things in the major arcana like the high priestess and the emperor and the empress, and things like the fool, which all have very strong European symbology, especially Italian symbology at the time. And that is why they look so different, is because they originated in two completely different areas of the world. And those two areas of the world mixed together to create what we know today as the commonly used tarot deck. And I'm going to check the chat really quick. So yes, the minor arcana are the numbers. Yep. Okay, cool. So today we are going to focus on the major arcana. They are also read extremely differently. So with the minor arcana, you take the numerology. So let's say we were trying to read the Five of Pentacles. You would take the numerology of the number 5 and what that means in numerology, especially in ancient Arabian numerology, and what that means. You would pair it with pentacles, and pentacles are a symbol for earth and a symbol for wealth, a symbol for material things, for physical objects that exist on the planet Earth and physical things that exist on the planet Earth, such as trees and mountains and people, family, and your house and your car and your school and your job and money and all of that. And you would take the meaning of the number 5 and mix it with the meaning of pentacles to create the meaning of the card. Whereas with major arcana, you are taking so much more and it becomes a lot more complex. Whereas with major arcana, you are taking astrology. You are taking the astrological meaning of the card itself, the planetary meaning, so the planet that rules over that astrology sign. You are also taking the element that that astrological sign represents, as well as the symbology within not only the card itself, so let's say the symbology of the Fool, but also the symbology that exists within the artwork of the Fool and how the Fool was drawn and how the Fool is represented using artwork, using color, the different meanings of each color that are used to represent and create the Fool, the scenery in the background. A lot of times the Fool will have a big cliff and mountains and water. They'll have an animal companion. They will usually be alone, other than their animal companion. And so you are taking all of those things into consideration when reading the major arcana. And so it not only has a much more complex meaning, but also it has a lot more, a lot longer of a meaning. So you could take a major arcana card and talk about someone's entire life, who they are as a person, their personality, how they react to situations, and the situations that they've been in recently. And you could tell a whole 45-minute story with one major arcana card. Whereas the minor arcana are usually going to talk about one very specific situation or one very specific aspect of your personality when it pertains and how it pertains to the situation that you're in. So is that all making sense so far? Are there any questions about the minor arcana versus the major arcana? Yes, so discs are going to be the same as pentacles. Yep. Yep, exactly. So thank you for answering that, Becca. So some decks are going to use cups instead of chalices. Some decks are going to use discs instead of pentacles. Some use staves instead of wands. They all have the same symbolic meaning. It just depends on not only what time period they were created in, but also kind of just the personal way that the artist wanted to depict them. And what kind of symbology they enjoy, their aesthetic, things like that. But they all represent the same thing. Yes, so we are going to be sharing some pictures on screen. I just wanted to give you a quick history. Don't worry, we are going to dive much deeper. And in the minor arcana classes that we have on the YouTube channel, that I did link, but I can totally link it again. But on the classes that we have on the minor arcana, I go very, very, very deep into the history that I just described to you. We go very, very deep into every single card, the meaning of all the numerology and all of that. I just wanted to do it very quickly because today we're focusing on the major arcana. But yes, I promise we're going to show cards. So for those of you who might not know what astrology is, astrology is the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial objects. Astrology has been dated back to at least the 2nd millennium BCE and has its roots in calendrical systems used to predict seasonal shifts and to interpret celestial cycles as signs of divine communication. You can read, I don't want to just sit here and read the slide for you. Please feel free to read the slide. But astrology has been used all over the world. Astrology has been found throughout different countries in Africa and especially ancient Egypt. It has been found all throughout the Middle East. A lot of Middle Eastern and Egyptian astrology is so a lot of a lot of tropical and Greek astrology has its roots in Egyptian and Middle Eastern astrology. And it's also, of course, found throughout East Asia as well. You have Chinese astrology, you have different forms of astrology that exist historically and indigenously in almost every country across the world. And there's one of my favorite forms of astrology is South American astrology. If you ever look at Mayan astrology, Incan astrology, and different astrology from South and Central America, it's beautiful. But today we are focusing on tropical astrology, which did originate and has its roots, like I said, in the Middle East and in Egypt. But once it came to Europe, it definitely evolved and changed into what we know in the Western world now as tropical astrology. And tropical astrology is going to be the astrological signs that I'm sure most of you are probably already familiar with. Things like I have on the screen right now, things like Aries and Leo and Sagittarius, Taurus and Virgo and Capricorn, and the planets that rule over these different astrology signs. And so this is called tropical astrology. So the major arcana within tarot are based off of tropical astrology. So the major arcana cards are defined and interpreted based on their astrological association, element, and symbology. To truly understand the major arcana, you must understand their astrology. Their astrological association will help you to understand their element. So for example, if the card itself represents Aries, then that means that the card itself also represents fire. And so this is a little cheat sheet that you can use. This is on the website as well. So you can just go, it's just divinationacademy.com. And this chart will be there for you if you are not sure what each astrological sign represents, which element that it represents. This is a little guide for you so that you can use. So then you have the planets that rule over each one of these signs. It is kind of controversial within the tropical astrology community. I always say that the planet rules over the astrological sign, whereas some tropical astrologists will say that the astrological sign rules over the planet. It is controversial. You are welcome to do research and decide which one you agree with. There are many different sides to the argument and different ways that they're interpreted based on the history and where tropical astrology stems from, where its roots are, but a planet is associated with an astrological sign. So here is your cheat sheet for which planets are associated with which astrological sign. And these are going to be very important when reading each card. So, hold on. Yes, so just to answer your question really fast, since I know you have to go, if you would like to get enrolled as a student, at the Divination Academy, you not only get access to all of these classes, but you also have access to being a part of our community. We have foraging adventures and giant online events. We have rituals that we do. We have giant retreats that we go on. And this academy believes that all spiritual education should be free. So every single thing we do is free. So if you would like to become a part of our community and join some of our certification programs, some of our private apprenticeships with certain professors, come on some of our events and activities, please send a message to our Facebook page and let us know that you'd like to get enrolled. It's all completely free. But I just wanted to answer that question in the chat before they had to go. So anyway, you will notice that some major arcana cards represent a planet and a zodiac sign. All of them do. A major arcana card can represent both a planet and a zodiac symbol. It can also represent multiple zodiac signs or multiple planets, as well as the sun or the moon. To completely understand the card, you must understand its basic symbology, as well as its multiple astrological associations, meaning the planet and the astrological sign. For example, the magician symbolizes Mercury and Gemini, which means that it is represented by heavy air signs. But also, as the magician itself, it represents all of the elements. So the magician card itself, remember how I was talking in the beginning about how we have to look at not only the artwork and the symbology, but also the astrology? That's what can make major arcana cards so complex sometimes, is that the magician, its artwork, and its symbology represent all of the elements. It's a card that represents mastery of all of the elements. But its astrological sign and its planet are heavy air and represented by air. And we're going to kind of talk about what that means as well. But for another example, the Fool represents Aquarius, Uranus, and Aries, which means that it also represents Mars as well. So you have Uranus, you have Aquarius, you have Aries, and you have Mars, all being represented by the Fool, which means that astrologically, it is represented by both fire and air, as well as the interpretations that go along with the symbology of the Fool. So here's an example of the artwork in the Fool card. So somebody asked which deck I recommend most for its symbology. And I really enjoy the Shadowscape deck for its symbology. The Shadowscape deck is such a beautiful deck. And I also recommend a deck called the Fae deck, not to be confused with the Fairy deck. It's called the Fae deck, and it is beautiful for its symbology. These classes go on for, sometimes they're 2 hours, sometimes they're an hour and a half. I'm going to try and make this one an hour and a half. We're going to see where it goes. So you'll notice too, I am not someone who loves the Rider-Waite deck. It's totally cool if you do, completely fine. The Rider-Waite deck is going to be what a lot of people suggest for your beginner's deck. I am not one of those people. I suggest the Shadowscape deck. Its symbology is much better in my opinion. The Rider-Waite deck is great. I'm not going to say that it's not. It's just, for me, sometimes the Rider-Waite deck can be very, I don't know. It's just not something that I find extremely symbolic. And I love the Shadowscape deck because it uses color theory to create its symbology, not just literal symbolism. If you're looking for literal symbolism, then yeah, the Rider-Waite deck is going to be amazing. And all of the ones that are kind of based off the Rider-Waite deck are going to be great too. But if you're looking for a little bit more of like this card that I have over here, which represents the Fool using color and using a lot more symbology that's kind of hidden within the picture, rather than just the Rider-Waite deck that is going to be Very, very clear symbology just pasted there on the card. It was one of the very, very first decks ever created in Europe, specifically in Italy. And so I tend to like ones that are a little bit more deep and complex and even more intuitive, and that you can read more into. There's more perception there so that they can be interpreted in different ways by different people, depending on the way that you interpret color theory, the way that you interpret symbolism. The Rider-Waite deck definitely has a very clear way that the artist wanted you to interpret it, and it's kind of hard to go anywhere else with it, if that makes sense. So yes, we are going to go into how the Fool. So now that I have told you, let's go back a slide really quick. So remember, if you need to write it down, you totally can. The Fool represents Aquarius, Uranus, Aries, and Mars. So we have air and we have fire. And if you already know a little something about Aries and Aquarius, you can throw that in as well. But now I want to open it up to you. Write down right now, if you would like to, if you have writing utensils with you or your phone with you, put it into notes before I switch the slide. And put into notes Aries, Mars, Aquarius, and Uranus. And now I'm going to switch the slides. Tell me, either using the chat or just take yourself off mute and tell me with your voice, what in these cards do you see that represents Aries, Aquarius, Uranus, and Mars?
Is that the Aries symbol on the third card?
It is. Yep. Yes, the sun. I love that. Can you go deeper into that? Why does the sun represent which one of those things does it represent and why? I know where you're going with that, but you know. And yes, that Shadowscapes deck, Amy. Yes. Ooh, and I love your card. Thank you for posting that. That's beautiful. That is so cool. I love that deck. That is such an amazing deck. The symbolism in there is gorgeous. That is amazing. It even has a rune, like it even has the rune symbol in there, which would be so perfect for Uranus. Oh, that is gorgeous. What a cool card. Thank you for showing that. Yes. The water, definitely. Fire of a new beginning, air with not knowing what the heck you're doing. Yes, I love that. Fire sign, looking up and the sun in the background. Yes.
Every card has some type of earth in it.
Yes, it does. I love how you noticed that. And to go even further with what you said, Earth, for those of you who know, which we're going to go over this as well, but Earth is not only represented by literal Earth, which you're right, every single card literally has like flowers or mountains or greenery or something like that in it, but also every card has a symbol for the symbology of Earth. So like in the third card, all the way to the right, you have the gold inside of his hat, which Earth represents money and wealth and prosperity. And in the middle picture, carrying the things that you own on your back is a representation for Earth as well, because Earth symbolizes, like I was saying, the personal items that you hold close to you that are sentimental to you. And same thing with the first one, holding the sentimental items on your back.
Where does the dog come in?
So yes, the Fool seems to always have an animal companion. The Fool always seems to be all by himself with an animal. Does
Okay.
anybody, well, no, there is a reason for that, and I will tell you, but does anybody else have a reason you might think? By the way, it has something to do with either Aquarius, Aries, Uranus, or Mars.
Could it mean the spirit animal?
Oh, that's a good one. I love that. That wasn't what I was gonna say, but yeah, totally, I could see that for sure.
I think it's the impulsivity of the Fool with the
Awesome.
fire.
Yes, that's definitely where I was going with it. You have the fire and the extreme fire that is represented by Mars and Aries. And Mars and Aries, it's not only impulsivity, which yeah, for sure, but also the childlike curiosity, the willingness to jump into absolutely anything, no matter the risks, because you're not really thinking about the risks. You don't process information like that. Being an Aries and a Mars sign, being somebody who is completely driven by your impulses, by your excitement, by your passion, by your love and lust, and just jumping into new situations without really thinking about it, definitely would be represented by something like a dog, something like a cat, something like an animal companion who is just always willing to jump into situations with you without really thinking about risks or being anxious about all the things that could go wrong. I love that you guys are sharing your cards. These are beautiful. Yes, and you can really see how each card depicts the exact same symbolism, just in so many different ways, and it's beautiful. Ooh, and I love that too, to keep the Fool emotionally grounded. Definitely, I could see an animal companion being used for that, especially when you're such an intense fire sign. And then also we have the idea too of air. And oh, yours doesn't have an animal companion. Let me see. Oh, you're right. I wonder if I can blow up that image so everybody can see. Yours instead decided to have a crystal companion. And to me, it looks like an amethyst crystal, but I'm not sure. Just a purple crystal companion, which also would work really, really well with that idea of emotional grounding, for sure. So that's awesome. So with the animal companion as well for Aquarius, for those of you, oh, so I was looking at somebody else's card. That's why I said that. Everybody's posting their own cards into the chat, and the one that Jordy posted, she's holding what looks to me like a purple crystal. And so, and it looks like amethyst, so I thought of emotional grounding. None of the ones that I posted have crystals though. Also, that crystal too can be a representation of Earth, which, like we said before, all of these have representations of Earth within them. But so the animal companion as well has also been described as so Aquarius. Aquarius signs tend to be very big thinkers, people who always overthink everything, people who tend to live in their own little world, and people who tend to also be extremely revolutionary, people who always try to make the world a better place in whatever image that looks like to them, people who are always rebelling, people who always seem to be fighting against what they would see as fascism or things being unfair, things being wrong. They always want to help make the world better, help make other people's lives better. And a lot of people see the animal companion as that Aquarius, as the companion that is always there to try and help make you feel better, help make you feel happier, help make the world that you exist in a better place. Because a lot of times that's what people's animals are, whether you're talking about a pet, or you're talking about a service animal, or you are talking about any animal that exists in your life. Usually they really want to make you happy and to help heal you. And that is very Aquarius. Ooh, I love your card too, Amy. And yours has 2 little animal companions. So that's awesome. So the Fool is a representation, now that we've kind of talked about the symbology within the cards, what people see, is of course Aries and Mars, as we talked about, which is that being extremely excited, extremely passionate, jumping into situations without even thinking about it. The Fool is the card of a new beginning and a new journey where you are just jumping in with all of the excitement in the world, with all of the passion, wanting to just go get everything, wanting to do all of the things all at once, and wanting to be, a lot of times too, because it's Aries, you want to be the best at it immediately, and you want to take all of the risks and learn absolutely everything that you possibly can, but you want to jump into doing it before you take time to learn about it. Usually the Fool tends to learn as they go rather than taking time to research and sit down and plan and sit down and go through all the steps and worry about everything in their head and overthink everything. Usually the Fool tends to just jump and do before they think. And that's why they're usually also depicted kind of about to jump off a cliff. With this one on the very right, you do not have somebody who's jumping off a cliff, but you do have somebody with a million staircases in the back of them, which are usually a million different journeys, trying to do a million different things all at once. Fire, I also love too, because it represents divination work. And you have this Fool who is reading tarot, and fire is a representation of divination work. And they have the candle for candle scrying, or for just working with fire in general, and as well as working with their tarot cards. And Aquarius, the Fool usually is somebody who is wanting to make the world a better place. They don't really have the overthinking quality of the Aquarius, because Aries kind of takes over that. The Fool usually does not overthink. The Fool usually does not think before doing. They're very intelligent and they're very smart, but just because, I mean, they are an Aquarius, so they're going to be very intelligent. They are going to be philosophers. They are going to be very knowledgeable, but when it comes to the things that they want to jump into, they usually don't overthink it, and they usually jump and do before thinking. They're very impulsive. They're very, very excited. And the Fool's journey is sometimes another name for the major arcana. Some people, their practice and their way of reading tarot is that the Fool is a representation for the person who is going through the journey of the major arcana. So the Fool is the beginning, it is 0. And the Fool is starting his journey, and every single card after the Fool is the Fool going through different steps and different experiences and different journeys. And it's called the Fool's Journey, and that is a way that people read the cards. So that is the Fool. You also have the different symbology that is represented by colors, as I said before, where you have in the middle, the Fool is wearing green and red, and which is represented by, green is a representation of earth and of the Fool wanting to make the world a better place, wanting to heal everybody, wanting to help the world, wanting to change the world, wanting to be that revolutionary person. And the red, of course, is that representation of fire. And you see a lot of red. And in the very first card, I love it too, because you have the big sun that represents fire. You have all the blues that represents the air of Aquarius, and all of the deep red that represent fire, the greens that represent earth. And even though none of the astrology within the Fool is represented by earth, like I said, you also have to take into account the meaning of the card. And the meaning of the card is somebody who's going out to follow their dreams and their passions. And a lot of times passions and dreams, and when they have something to do with the real world. So if your dreams have something to do with your career, your goals, your house, your car, your education, your school, your wealth, your prosperity, your family, your friends, all of that is going to be represented by earth. I'm going to go back and read the chat. Oh, cool. Oh, all of your cards are so beautiful. Wow. Cool. Yes, it's very un-Virgo. It's very true. This is not a card represented by Virgo. I love all your cards. Thank you so much for sharing all of these. Okay. So next we have, if you would like to read the slide, my big explanation of how the Fool is represented by Uranus, Aries, and Aquarius. And of course, we have Uranus being eccentricity and rebellion and adventure and revolution and change and risk and unpredictability. And that idea of free will, wanting to be on the cutting edge of everything, wanting to break tradition, creating new molds, not worrying about all the different problems that everybody has told the Fool to worry about, not worrying about how people have done it in the past. They're going to do it their own way, and they really don't care. Even though that does usually mean that the Fool tends to make a million mistakes and tends to fall off the cliff over and over and over again, because the Fool doesn't really care about other people's warnings or the way that other people have done it or anything like that. The Fool just wants to do it their own way and follow their own feet and break tradition and do everything their own way. It's pretty beautiful. I love the Fool. The Fool is one of my favorite cards. And you have Aries, which we did talk about, but you can read. I give you a much bigger explanation in this slide if you would like to read it. But it is the growth of spring. It is the sun. It is bursting with youthful enthusiasm. It is vital life force and heat and fire. It is impulsivity and assertiveness, creativity. And then Aquarius, they are visionaries and progressive souls who love to spend time thinking. They are philosophers. They tend to be overthinkers as well, overthink everything. And they also tend to have a lot of friends and acquaintances, and they want to make the world a better place, and they want to make the world a much more collaborative place that works together. Cool. I was just taking a second to read the chat. Okay. So I'll give you guys a second to read that if you did want to read the slide a little bit more to get a little bit more information. And also remember too, for those of you who haven't done a lot of research into astrology, just because two signs are going to represent the same element does not make them the same symbolically. Like, for example, a Sagittarius and an Aries both represent fire. A Sagittarius and an Aries are very, very, very different. Just like an Aquarius represents air, but it is going to be extremely different from the other air signs. All of the signs are extremely different, even though they do represent the same element. So they are going to have similar qualities, but they are very, very different. Okay. Cool. So we are going to now talk about the elements. Now that I showed you the card, we kind of discussed and talked about the elements a little bit. I really want to discuss and talk about the elements because they are going to be very important when we start talking about the next cards that we are going to talk about today. So you guys can read the slide. I am just going to summarize a little bit. But Earth is stability and healing and grounding. It is every single thing that exists on this plane of existence. It is every single thing around you. It is your clothes and your house and your car and your family and your kids and your all the things. It is also the cycle of life that we are inevitably a part of, no matter what. It is how we are connected to all things on this planet that are also part of the cycle of life. And it is our connection to that. It both reminds us of our immortality as well as our mortality. That even though all things on earth live and die, that also because when you die, your body and the particles and atoms that make up your body will just go back into the universe and into the dirt or into the air or into stardust or into the atmosphere, wherever the particles may go. You will always exist on this planet. The particles that make up you and your body and who you are will always exist. Well, in this universe, not necessarily on this planet, but they will always exist in this universe, and they will never stop existing. So you are both mortal and immortal all at the same time. And air symbolizes our freedom and our intellectual thought. It is everything that you cannot see. It is your wisdom. It is your intuition. It is your intelligence. And it is your train of thought, your consciousness, your logic and mathematics. It is the mathematics and the logic that not only exist within your own mind, but that make up the entire world. It is the sacred geometry that exists within plants that is unseen. That is, the plant itself is going to be represented by earth, but the unseen sacred geometry that exists within the shapes and the logic and the mathematics of the plant are going to be represented by air. And then, of course, the wind and the gases that exist all around us, the gases that exist in the atmosphere, and how ever-changing your stream of consciousness and your wisdom, your thought, how ever-changing your thoughts are, and how thought is something that also exists within all sentient beings and connects us all. Okay, I was just pausing to read the chat a little. Okay, cool. So does anybody have any questions about the representation of earth and air and how that would translate into the major arcana of tarot? So then we have fire. Fire is the eruption of passion. Fire is every action that you take. It is all of your impulses. It is your rebellion. It is the spark that exists inside of all sentient beings. It is warmth and love. It is all of the actions that you have ever made that are the building blocks of your personality. It is raw energy produced by the sun, produced by fire, produced by heat. It is the most raw and pure form of magic. It represents divination. It represents all of the magic that we do in the energy of the universe. It is the magic of our ancestors. It is energy that is seemingly created by nothing. It is this deep energy that exists within all things. And I don't just mean energy as in this force that we all talk about, especially if you are in the pagan community, but I mean the literal energy that exists. It is the electrical impulse inside of your brain that happens every single time that you have a thought or an emotion. It is the electrical impulse itself. It is not the emotion, because that is water. It is not the thought, because that is air. It is the electrical impulse that causes you to have that thought and that emotion. It is the electrical impulse that transfers from neuron to neuron as you think and as you grow and as your brain gains more knowledge. It is the action of walking, the action of running, and these create energy. It is not metaphorical energy. Yes, it is metaphorical energy as well, but it is also the literal energy that you are creating by walking and by running and by thinking and just by moving. Because we all know that by moving and thinking and walking and all these things, we are creating literal energy that actually, physically exists. And that inside of your brain, you have literal electrical impulses that happen every millisecond. It creates an action potential, and that is what creates a thought. And that is fire. And water is emotion. It is the whirlwind of emotions. It is your grief, your sadness, your depression. It is your joy and your excitement and your happiness. It is your relationships with other people that are fueled by emotion. It is your loneliness and your trauma, but it is also your friendship and your love and your compassion and your empathy. It is all things that connect us to each other's emotions and to our own. It is all emotion as well as the literal water that exists inside of our body and within the planet Earth. It symbolizes the phases that we move through in life as the never-ending cycle of life continues. It is love that heals us and consumes us and also breaks us apart. It is all aspects of emotion and how we react to each other's emotion. And also the emotion of all sentient beings on this planet, not just humans, but the emotions of animals and the emotions of all sentient things that exist. Yes, so that's a great question, Jennifer. So the zodiacs are card specific. So every single card represents a zodiac sign, as well as a planet, and as well as its own symbology. It is not decided by the reader or the person being read. The cards have their own astrological associations, their own planetary associations, as well as their own symbology. There's a lot of intuition that goes into tarot card reading, but on as a whole, every single card is strictly represented by specific zodiac signs, planets, and symbology. And then if you understand the symbology, you understand the astrology, and you understand the planetary association, then you can start adding your own intuition. So like, let's say, you know that the Fool is represented by Aries and Aquarius. You know that. Now you can start to make your own intuitive interpretations about what that means, because obviously Aries in itself has many interpretations and it has many perceptions, and the planet Mars has many different ways to perceive and interpret the planet Mars. So that's where you can start using your intuition and your perception as the reader, because you understand what Mars represents and that the Fool represents Mars and Aries and Aquarius and Uranus. So you're able to make your own intuitive, you're able to read intuitively because you understand what Aries represents, and now you can use your intuition to perceive Aries and decide what it means in this scenario next to the cards that it's next to. Awesome. I love that, Melissa. Yeah, I would agree with everything that you said. Yep, totally. So, okay, next. Oh, well, okay, so first of all, does anybody have any questions about any of the 4 elements and how they will relate to the cards that we are going to talk about? Or how they relate to tarot in general, or just any questions about the elements at all? Have you worked with elements before? Is this new to you? And has this changed your perception on things now that you understand what each of the elements represents and what it means? Yes, you will be able to watch this afterwards. It will be on our YouTube channel. And actually a class very similar to this one is already up on the YouTube channel. I noticed that a lot of you were new, so I'm kind of starting at the beginning, and we already have 2 classes that go over the beginning of Intro to Major Arcana on the YouTube already up. So just go to Divination Academy on YouTube and you'll find us. We're the only people named Divination Academy. Of course, no problem. We are awesome. Okay, so I do have in this slideshow as well, kind of a study at home guide to if you would like homework and if you would like to study the elements at home, and study the Fool and the Magician and kind of the cards that we went over already. Here is some homework that you can do if you would like to. But don't worry, class is not over. Oh, good, awesome. I'm glad that you learned something. I love going over the elements. I think that it's very important to understand the elements before we really dive deep into the meanings of each card. So now that we are finished with that slideshow, we are going to go here. Okay, so So now we're going to start looking at some specific cards and pictures of those cards and start interpreting the artwork and the astrology attached to each one of those cards. So let me share screens again. So yes, later in this series, we will be reading each other. Oh, yeah, that's what you were saying. But yes, later in this series, we will be giving each other tarot readings. In the Minor Arcana series, what I have students do, and you'll see that on YouTube, is they take all the Minor Arcana cards out of the deck and read each other using just the Minor Arcana. It's pretty cool. And we'll be doing that in this class as well. So for those of you who haven't been to our website yet, this is our website, divinationacademy.com. So if you go to the study guide section, that's where we'll be going right now. And we are going to be going down to tarot. So you click on tarot. So here's your cheat sheet. Like I had told you before, both of the cheat sheets that we already mentioned, and then the description of the Fool that we already went over. The next one is the Magician. And I really loved this card. I'm gonna kind of zoom out so you can see. So the Magician is represented by Mercury, and it is also represented by Virgo. And if you scroll up, you will see here Virgo and Mercury, like we talked about in the first slide. So, but it is also represented by all of the elements. So we are going to go over and discuss the Magician. So first of all, and it is also, so first, okay, slow down. So first, let's talk about Virgo and let's talk about Mercury. So for those of you who don't know, you can scroll up to your little cheat sheet up here and you can look at Virgo. And Virgo is represented by Earth. And we just talked about Earth and the definition of Earth and what it means. So why do you think that just by looking at the card and looking at the symbolism that this specific artist used, where do you see Earth and Virgo being represented? For those of you who know anything about Virgo, where do you see Virgo and Earth being represented in this card? Yes, so that's a great question. Thank you. So that's what we were going to talk about, and I kind of stopped because I was getting ahead of myself. But yes, I love how you noticed that. It is also represented by Gemini because it is represented by Mercury. And if you look here, Gemini is also ruled by Mercury. So yes, it also represents Mercury. Very good question. I'm so happy you noticed that. Yes, the border of the leaves. That is an awesome observation. Exactly. Yep. The leaves represent Earth. Very black and white. And yes, if you want to go kind of into that and why, because I agree completely. But why do you think black and white is a representation of Virgo or Gemini or Mercury? Yes. Opposition, yin and yang. I love it. Definitely. Yes. Twins completing, totally. I think that also to me too, and just to point this out, because I found it kind of funny, this is just stereotypically. if you take astrology courses and you would see just a stereotypical version of what a Virgo would look like, it's her. This is this is what a Virgo, that's the exact look a Virgo would give you stereotypically. I'm just stereotyping a Virgo. But this is the exact way that she would fold her arms and glare at you and look at you as if you were stupid. Not that she's doing that, but that's just such a very stereotypical Virgo thing to do. And yes, Virgos do like things very black and white, no gray. Yep, my way or the highway look. Exactly. So Mercury, which I always found very interesting, is the planet of communication, study, knowledge, and intellect. And to me, that always reminded me so much of air, as I just described to you. Air is communication, air is thought, air is our stream of consciousness, our wisdom, our way of thinking, and our perception, and the way that we see the world and view the world, and the way that our thoughts interact with the world. And so for Mercury to represent such an earth sign, just tells you a lot about Virgo. And how, even though Virgo is very represents earth, it is also one of the signs that represent earth that are very, very, very focused on intellect and knowledge and wisdom and communication. They are going to be very, very different from somebody like a Taurus, who is also an earth sign, but very different from a Virgo. And oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, poor thing. A Cancer living with 2 Virgos. Oh, I'm so sorry. But yes, so a Virgo, a lot of the times the reason that they are represented a lot of the times by Mercury and by this idea of wisdom and intellect and thought, and being somebody who is extremely passionate about learning and about being the smartest one in the room, being somebody who is very focused on education, is that idea that a lot of you already mentioned, that Virgos really tend to see things in a very black and white way, that things are one way or the other, that they tend to have a hard time seeing things in a metaphorical way, in a way that's solely based on intuition and perception, in a way that is only based on metaphorical ideas. They tend to see things in a way that is based on education, based on science, based on even their own form of experiment. Like, they have been through this before over and over again. They've gained wisdom and they've gained knowledge, and therefore they know how something works, and they aren't going to accept the idea that it could work another way. And once again, all humans are very different. I don't like saying that Virgo people are one way, but this is a tarot card. This is not a person. So even though tarot cards can represent people, this is going to represent one aspect of your personality. And this aspect of your personality can, when it's represented by the magician, can be very much a person that is, I've experienced it, I've been through it, I've gained the knowledge from it, therefore I am right. And I am knowledgeable on this topic, and therefore you should listen to me. And if you don't know anything about this topic, then why are you creating your own metaphorical ideas? Because obviously I know better than you, so you should probably listen to me. But this is a tarot card, it's not a person. So this is just one aspect of a person's personality. Yes. I'm so happy you caught those. Yes, this card has a lot of alchemical symbols in it. Yep. I'm so happy that your first class with me was alchemy. That's awesome. Yep. So if you have taken my alchemy class, you will start to see the alchemy symbols within this card as well. So the magician. The magician, okay, let's talk about, so we've talked a lot about Virgo. And let's talk about the Gemini aspects of this card as well. And so if you guys scroll up to your little cheat sheet and you look, Gemini is represented by air. And of course, that one makes a lot more sense when we talk about Mercury, because air, like I already described, is that communication, the thought, the wisdom, the person who is a philosopher. And so it makes a lot more sense. And this card is also represented by Gemini. So the Magician is a card that represents the extreme intelligence that you have gained in your years on this planet. And usually, like I said, these cards aren't going to stand alone, usually. Of course, there are people who just pick one card and have it kind of represent an idea for their day or for their week or for whatever, or for their ritual or spell. But usually these cards are going to show up in a spread. So there's going to be a lot of context to why you are receiving the Magician. So maybe it's that you have become extremely intelligent and wise about one thing. Maybe you just graduated with your master's in a certain field, and now you have received the Magician card, that you have become somebody who is extremely knowledgeable in your field, and you are somebody that other people should go to for wisdom on this topic. The Magician is somebody who is also known as the master of all elements when it comes to the specific situation that is being represented by the spread that you got. So they have all of the tools to be able to manipulate situations, to be able to completely blow people's minds with their knowledge and ability and skills. They are someone who you can tell very, very quickly is extremely good at something. That person who just walks into the room and you can tell that they know way more than you do about a specific subject, that they are a master, that they have knowledge beyond your years of knowledge, that they know it too. There are a lot of cards that represent knowledge and wisdom. There are not a lot of cards that represent it in a way that the Magician does. The Magician not only is represented by air, but also by earth. So not only do they have the knowledge and the wisdom, but they also are able to apply it in the real world. They are able to use their knowledge and wisdom to create and to profit and to create prosperity for themselves and for others. They have all of the tools that they need to be able to succeed. And they are the master of earth, air, fire, and water when it comes to the specific knowledge that they have gained about a specific topic. They are someone who, like I said, they know that they are brilliant, so they are going to tell you that you're wrong. They are going to tell you that they are right. They are going to argue their point to the death. They are going to make it known that they are extremely brilliant, and that's amazing. And the Magician qualities are something too that I always wish that I had a little bit more of as well. They are somebody who is extremely confident. They are going to fight for what they know that they deserve when it comes to their respect, when it comes to other people knowing that they are the best person for the job, that they are the best person for whatever it is that they are the wisest at. They are filled with brilliance, filled with confidence, and when it comes to a specific subject, and whatever that subject is, you are going to find that out in the context of the spread. They are going to demand that you listen to them, and that they are right, and that they have the most wisdom about the topic, and they do. They are right. So, oh, I love seeing all of your different magician cards. Yes, I will post a link to the YouTube channel. Yes, I will post a link to the recording and a link to the YouTube channel. Yes. I think that's such a great comment that you made too. I love Sailor Moon, and this card definitely would represent Sailor Mercury quite well. Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, Becca, of course, of course. You are a Gemini rising and a Virgo sun. Of course you are. That is amazing. So let me post the link to the YouTube channel right now. Here you go. So here's our YouTube channel. I really have to work on our banner. But anyway, here's the link to the YouTube channel so you can watch our videos. And this one has already been posted, so you can just look in the tarot playlist and you will see Introduction to Major Arcana. This one has already been posted. So not obviously this exact class because it's still happening, but one very, very similar to this one. So does anybody have any questions about the magician, about the astrological signs that are represented by the magician, and about what this card means when it would come up in a spread? Yeah, see, so a lot of people's cards, that's why I say she's the master of all elements. And I'm going to use the image that somebody just popped into the chat just now. So not only is she represented by Mercury, Virgo, and Gemini, and so that would be very strong earth and air, and that represents her intelligence and wisdom and her ability to pull that into the real world. But also, as you can see on this card here, this card shows a pentacle, a chalice, a staff, and a sword, which is earth, air, fire, and water. The chalice is water, the pentacle is earth, the staff or the wand, whatever you want to call that, is fire, and the sword is air. So it's a great representation of how she is the master of all elements within her field of knowledge. And then same thing with the other one that was just posted. Once again, we have chalices, we have discs, we have wands, and we have swords, earth, air, fire, and water. So yeah, master of all elements within her field of knowledge. So we're actually going to go a little bit out of order because in one of the classes I've already covered all of these before. So we are going to skip to, you know what, this one is so easy. Such a lovely, so this is the Shadowscape deck that I was talking about. So this is the Shadowscape deck, and this is represented, this is strength. And so it kind of gives you an idea of why this is my favorite deck. I mean, do you see the symbolism? Like, I mean, wow. But so the symbolism of this card is just amazing. And you can see instantly what this card represents. I mean, it is obvious. In every single aspect of this card, it is obvious. It even helps describe what Leo means. So oh, good. I'm so glad you enjoyed the class, Sharon. So this is Leo, and this is the strength card, and the strength card is represented by Leo. And this one is very self-explanatory, which is one of the reasons I decided to skip to it. It's a very easy one. So if you go and you look at Leo and you go look at the cheat sheet, it is going to tell you that Leo represents fire, which is very obvious in this card. You have many, many, many different symbols that represent fire in this card. You can also see the many different aspects that represent strength and the many different aspects that represent Leo. So does somebody want to say with their voice or in chat, what symbols can you see? Oh, I love your strength cards. Yep, all strength cards usually have a lion, which should tell you immediately what its astrological symbol is. Immediately. Yes. We definitely have an aspect of fearlessness, for sure, and especially represented by fire. Most definitely. You will have that huge aspect of fearlessness. But if you scroll up to, and I want to keep showing you just because I want to make sure that you guys do this when you're looking through this on the website, but that the Leo is also represents the sun. And if you go to the cheat sheet, you can see right here, Leo represents sun. So since Leo represents the sun, it's not necessarily a planet, which is very special about Leo. It is not ruled by a planet. It's ruled by the sun, which makes Leo very special. And yes, there is an aspect of fearlessness, but yes, exactly. And I love that you pointed that out, Jennifer, because the Leo is hurt. That strength, though it does definitely have an aspect of fearlessness, but also that it does take strength to be scared. It takes strength to admit that you're scared. It takes strength to admit that you need help, to admit that you're hurt, to admit that you need guidance. And Leos, well, in all honesty, Leos suck at that. So I think that's also a funny aspect of this card as well, is that Leos really enjoy showing off their fearlessness and their strength, but we also have to remember how much strength it takes to admit that you're wrong, to admit that you failed, to admit that you need help. And this card, the symbology of the card, is so much more than just Leo, just like all the cards. The astrological association is only one aspect of what the card means. So what else can you guys see in this card that represents Leo and the sun and fire? Many cards do have the infinity symbol. There's many different reasons why. A lot of times the infinity symbol is thrown in for the aspect of reincarnation and that immortality aspect that I was showing you. So when cards have a lot of earth reference to them or fire reference, you get a lot of that infinity symbol to represent the immortality of our energy, of our atomic structure, of our particles, and how they exist in this universe forever, and that they are truly immortal, because the particles and atoms and energy that make up you will be a part of this planet and this universe forever. So yes, the yellow, the incense, definitely. Directed energy, controlled power. I love that. Yes. Of course, no problem. So many birds. That's a great question. There are lots of different things that I have come up with for why they decided to add so many birds to this card. One of those things being that impulsive free spirit of fire. We talked about fire before, and they are those people who just jump at every opportunity to do everything that they want to create their own paths. They want to do things their own way. They want to be free. They do not overthink everything. They just jump into situations without thinking, and they are they remind me a lot of flying and of creating your own path and not being trapped by only being able to walk or to run, but instead you can fly. So it really brings in that aspect of the freedom of fire, and how a lot of the other signs and a lot of the other cards, they become so tied down with overthinking and being so anxious and being so worried and thinking that they can't do it and having imposter syndrome, whereas fire doesn't. Fire is passionate and excited and jumps into everything without thinking about the risks and without overthinking and without imposter syndrome and without worrying. And that is such a great aspect of fire, and I think that's why they added the birds. A lot of cards depict men. You will just notice that my favorite decks usually depict women, but that's not all decks. You'll actually notice with the Rider-Waite deck, it's typically men. A lot of decks depict men. My favorites, you'll just notice on the website, there are a lot of women, just because my favorite decks tend to show women. Or even people who are not women and not men, and or people who are both, or people who aren't represented by any gender. And yeah, but it's just because they're my favorite decks. Yes, the symbolism of the red ribbon on the cat's neck with the bell behind the lion. I love that. Yes. Definitely such a great representation of fire. So this card just like screams strength. It screams Leo. This card is represented by you feeling strength and empowered. And that can mean a lot of different things. As we have said before, or as I have said before, it depends on the context of the reading when you see this card in the spread, but it can be the strength to realize that you need help, the strength to realize you can't do it on your own, or the strength to feel empowered and fearless and to go at things head on without being scared. And that is definitely a very obvious symbol for strength. But also, a lot of times when I see the strength card come up in a reading, it is because the person found the strength to get help, because the person found the strength to ask others and let people know that they're suffering and that they need help. And a lot of times that takes just as much strength as it takes to go out and do something incredible and fearless and to take on the world. But Leos are people who are leaders. They are people who, like I said before, with the Fool and with Fire and Aries, people who tend to do things without thinking, people who tend to do things very impulsively, people who tend to be extremely passionate and excited. But unlike Aries, Leos tend to want to take care of people. They tend to be people who are very loving and caring, and they always want to express empathy. They always want to be they always want to be in charge. They always want to be the leaders. Whereas Aries kind of just always wants to be right. They don't necessarily want the responsibility of being a leader. They just want everybody to know that they're the best at something. And like I said, this isn't all Aries, being very stereotypical with my astrological signs, but those tend to be the stereotypical differences. Usually I get my decks from my local metaphysical bookstores. I really enjoy supporting local metaphysical bookstores. I also, ever since I started this academy, I've been getting them as gifts. So I have like 120 decks now because everybody buys me them as gifts, which is really, really wonderful and so sweet. And I love all of my decks so much. Yes, that actually tends to happen. So a lot of fire signs love being around each other. And not to say that that's not something that happens with all the signs, but fire signs, from what I have noticed in my life, it tends to be that fire signs are very drawn to each other. When you get two flames of fire together, they end up burning down the forest or taking over the world or going on crazy intense adventures together. They tend to be the only person that can be as intense and excited and loud and like impulsive and wanting to be free and not caring about what other people think as you are. So fire signs tend to be very drawn to each other. That totally makes sense. Yep. Nice. Wow, really? You're an Aries and one of your best friends is a Scorpio? Good for you. And now obviously, I am we not only do you have to take into account their rising sign and their sun sign and all the different, like their entire chart as a whole. So whenever I do talk about these astrological signs, I am definitely doing it in a way that is funny, to take it with a grain of salt, that these are very stereotypical ideologies based on the astrological signs, but it's still funny and I love talking about it. Scorpios are a challenge. I'm a Sagittarius, and I'm also a Sagittarius in like 90% of my chart. Not really, it's probably more like 60, but like 60% of my chart is fire. And a huge portion of it is Sagittarius. So, oh, you're a Sagittarius too. Nice. We're the best sign. I mean, and we know it. So it's, I'm joking. I'm kidding. But so, yes. So does anybody have any questions about Leo and about the strength card? Wow, a Sag Scorpio. Nice. My sister is a Scorpio. It's hard. So we're going to go over one more, and then that'll probably be the end of class for today. By the way, just to let all of you know, you can draw on the screen in Zoom. So that's what's happening right now. People are drawing on the screen. It's totally cool. I don't mind. But just in case any of you were wondering what the random blue dots were, people are drawing on the screen. Oh, okay. So by the way, if anybody is interested, we have two incredible astrology professors at this academy. One is Micah. You will find them all on the staff page. So if you go up here, I'll show you really quick before we go over our last card, just so all of you can know this. I love astrology. I'm a tarot reader. I've been a tarot reader for a million years. I've been studying tarot forever, but my astrology kind of ends there. It ends with tarot and my understanding of tarot. But we have incredible astrology professors. And if you go to meet our staff right here at the top, one of our astrology professors is Micah, and the other astrology professor is Danielle. If you get enrolled in the Divination Academy, our professors offer free chart readings. So if you'd like to get your chart read, please enroll in the academy and you can get your chart read. Your chart will, what it is they will look at your time of birth and your place of birth, and of course your date of birth. And it will create an entire chart that shows everything about not only your past, present, and future, but also about your personality and who you are and your relationships and your family and all kinds of amazing things. And it's incredible. They blow my mind. It's so cool. So if you're interested in that, please get enrolled in the academy. The way that you get enrolled in the academy is just shoot a message to the Facebook page where you saw this event, get enrolled, and they will give you a free chart reading. So we are going to go over, you know what? Let's cover one that is highly, a lot of people misinterpret this card when they're first beginning in tarot. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about death as our last card. I think that'd be a great one to end on. So I'm going to clear the blue lines really quick. Okay, so death. A lot of people, and I'm just going to tell you that it is untrue, but a lot of people think of the death card as meaning you're going to die. And spoiler, it does not mean that. You are not going to die. Death is not a representation of literal death in tarot readings. So death is represented by Scorpio. As I was just talking about how Scorpios can be so difficult. Of course, in tarot, they're represented by death. And also, I do find it so funny and so ironic, I guess, that Scorpio is one of the most misunderstood astrological signs. And it's also one of the most misunderstood tarot cards, which is very interesting. Yes, exactly. Good job. You guys already knew. That's awesome. So death, yes. Death is represented by transformation, rebirth. So the strength card that I shared is my favorite deck. Is that, were you asking? Oh, you weren't asking me. Never mind. Continue. So death is represented by Scorpio. And Scorpio is a water sign. And so if you guys remember what water represents, that water represents emotions. And as much as Scorpios hate it, and as much as they will deny it up and down, they're actually an extremely emotional zodiac sign. They are, yes, they are very emotional. Even if they'll deny it up and down. But so death is actually a representation of emotion. And a lot of times it is a representation of transformation and how emotional it can be to go through a time in your life that is extremely transformative, that is rebirth, being born again out of the ashes, having to start over, having to pick up where you, not being able to pick up where you left off, having to pick up from the beginning, and having to realize that you need to change, that you need to evolve, that you need to transform, and that you need to grow, and that you need to evolve, and or being forced to transform and forced to evolve and kind of forced into this time period of rebirth, and how emotionally traumatic that can be. And yes, exactly. Good job. So thank you. So then, of course, you have, which for those of you who do not know, if you scroll up and we look up here, you have Scorpio being represented by Pluto. And it is how, yes. So Pluto is also war. And Pluto is represented by these intense feelings of being at war with yourself, with the universe, being put into a huge situation where you were forced to change and where you were forced to be at war with yourself, where something huge and gigantic happened. And usually, yes, it is not something amazing that happened. Usually it is something traumatic that happened to you, but sometimes it can be something amazing that happened. It doesn't always have to be bad, but usually when you do see the death card, it's usually something traumatic that happened that forced you to be reborn and forced you to transform and forced you to evolve as a person and forced you into a situation that you wish you didn't have to be in, which forced you to change and grow as a human being. But sometimes it can be something amazing that happened that forced you into this feeling of transformation that you had to step up to the plate and evolve and change so that you could be the person that you needed to be because something incredible happened. It can also be that something happened that you didn't know yet was incredible. I have seen the death card come up many times when people had an unplanned pregnancy happen that they weren't so super excited about in the beginning, but that ended up turning into something that they were really excited about. Or that something happened where somebody that you love ended up leaving and that you had to go through a lot of trauma and reevaluate life and who you are and gain confidence again and gain the ability to trust again and gain the ability to love again, and or that you experienced homelessness and having to pick yourself up and start over again, or things that really big events that can happen that can kind of force you into this feeling of having to start again from the beginning and transform. It can also happen during the aging process as well, where the death card will come up when you have to transform into a new phase of life, that you are entering a new phase of life, whether that means going from being a child to being an adult or going from being an adult to being someone who is elderly, and how much it can feel like you have to start over. Like there were all these rules that you had to learn and all of these societal norms and all of these things that you had to become extremely good at and this knowledge that you had to gain. And sometimes when you enter a new phase of life, it feels like there are a whole new set of rules that you have to learn and a whole new process of starting over and having to adapt to this new phase of life that you're in. And because it's represented by Scorpio, there are these intense emotions that you go through. And a lot of times, especially because it's represented by Scorpio and by Pluto, and Pluto is the planet of emotional war and strength and having to persevere and being extremely resilient. I always found it funny that we told the planet of resilience and rebellion and war and emotional wisdom and emotional transformation that like they're not a planet. I always found that to be very funny. But anyway, so you go through a lot of emotional turmoil, and that's where Scorpio comes in, is just the emotional trauma that exists within transformation, rebirth, and new phases of life. Okay, I'm just going through the chat. Okay. Cool. All right. So does anybody have any questions about the death card and how it relates to Pluto and Scorpio? Okay. So something that for the end of the class that I would love if everybody could do just for your own knowledge and study, if you are looking to pursue tarot and really dive deep into it. So of course, this page, I'm not completely finished with it yet. Every single one of these is going to have an explanation like the Fool, where I go through every planet and every astrological sign and explain, you know, how it relates to the card and what the definition of that card is. And then of course, once you understand the astrological signs, you understand the meaning, the symbolism, the planets and all of that, you can start to interpret the card using your own intuition and using your own perception and your own way of reading as the reader. But if you go to here, and like I said, you go to study guides, and you go to tarot for homework. If you would like to do homework, we have a million sections in here. And something that I think that you should definitely study is the elements, because I just assumed, because we had already gone over the elements, that you understood them, but there would be a much bigger definition of death and Scorpio, because it's going to incorporate the entire definition of water. And so make sure that you start to memorize what the elements mean and really internalize what every element means and how it's defined. And so this is the page where you can go to start learning about the elements. We have whole classes on the elements, and then I would go into learning about tarot spreads, how they can affect the meaning of the cards. And then of course, if you're looking to learn about the minor arcana, you can look at numerology, the meaning of every single number. And like I said, to be able to read minor arcana, you just take the number of the card. So like, let's say it's the 4 of Pentacles. So that'd be the 4 of Earth. So you take the definition of 4 and pair it with the definition of Earth, and then start to come up with your own intuitive reading. What does the card mean to you and to you as the reader when you understand the numerology of 4 and the element of Earth, and you put those together? What does that mean to you intuitively and using your own perception as the reader? And so yeah, just check out the tarot section on the website to study more and do some homework before our next class. Our next class is actually in a couple days, and we are going to cover every single major arcana card that we have not yet covered in these classes, just so that every single major arcana card will be up on the YouTube channel, and we can start going into more advanced aspects of tarot reading. We can start giving each other readings. We can start looking at different spreads. And so the next class, we will finish going over all of the major arcana cards that we have not gone over yet. There's only like 3 or 4 that we haven't gone over yet. And then we will start giving each other readings. So for your homework, I would say work on the minor arcana so that you have a better understanding of giving readings, so that you can join us for our next class where we start giving each other readings. Yes, it'll be a continuation of this class. Yes, there is a calendar and a schedule for upcoming classes on the Facebook page. So if you go to the Facebook page right here, oh geez, is it really gonna, okay. So if you go to the Facebook page right here, it's a cute little picture of our academy, but the people in our academy, but you will see, oh my gosh, really? It's gonna make me do it all over again. Okay. Come on. Okay, so you will see in featured our upcoming events. And in our upcoming events, you can see that tomorrow we have Introduction to Norse Mythology. And then, that's February. Oh, this is not in order. Okay, here you go. So this Friday, we will have our next tarot class. It's on Friday. And that is when we will finish up with the major arcana cards. And then on Saturday, we will start giving each other readings. And then tomorrow we have Introduction to Norse Mythology. So just go to our Facebook page to see the schedule. Okay, so I do want to, that's a great question. Let me just clear the air here. So since there are 30 of you here, hopefully I can actually get this out to some people. So our academy is completely free. And what that means is, as well, is that all of our staff members, all of our professors, all of the administration, everybody who works to build this academy every day is a volunteer. So if they need to reschedule, if their kid is sick, if they are going through something in life, if they had to work late, if something happened in their life, I do not require them to come give me an explanation and like ask for time off. They just get to reschedule their class. They're a volunteer. They are not getting paid. So if something's going on in their real life and they need to reschedule a class, it is okay with me and they can always reschedule. So that means that a lot of things will get rescheduled because we value the mental health and the physical health of our staff members over the success of this academy. And so we are deeply sorry that classes get canceled a lot. I know that it happens, or rescheduled. They don't really get canceled. They get moved to a few days in the future. But if classes get rescheduled over and over again, I'm so sorry. Usually what it means is that the professor is dealing with a sick child. The professor is dealing with themselves being sick, or with their manager keeping them at work all night, or something like that, and they had to reschedule the class. We try to give everybody as much notice as possible by posting it on Facebook, but the algorithm on Facebook doesn't like us, and it only shares the post with like 4 people. So we deeply apologize for that, and thank you for being so understanding. We're doing our best. And yeah, thank you. So I hope to see you all for, I'm going to stop recording.